I need to tell you something before this story begins. I almost lost my husband over a conversation that never happened. Not a misunderstanding. Not a fight that got out of hand. Not the ordinary damage that marriages sustain over time and learn to repair. A conversation that was manufactured. Word by word. Message by message. By someone who had my phone number, my husband's email address, and 3 years of watching our marriage closely enough to know exactly which sentences would do the most damage. My sister, I want you to understand what I mean when I say almost. I mean that there was a night, a specific Tuesday night in February, when my husband sat across from me at our kitchen table with printed screenshots in his hands and told me he did not know who I was anymore. That night is when I think about when people ask me what the hardest moment of my life was, not what my sister did, not the discovery, not the aftermath. That Tuesday night, my husband's face, the specific quality of love trying very hard to survive something it did not yet understand. That is the hardest moment. What happened between that Tuesday night and the family reunion 4 months later, and what my sister did not know about. The woman sitting quietly in the corner of that reunion hall with her phone in her hand is the story I want to tell you today. If you are new here, please subscribe right now and drop your country and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you all the way back to the beginning. My name is Nadia Chambers. I am 36 years old. I have been married to my husband Thomas for 9 years. We have 2 children, a son who is 7 and a daughter who is 4, and a life in Nashville that we have built slowly and carefully, and with the specific intentionality of 2 people who understand that good things require constant tending. Thomas is a structural engineer. He is the kind of man who approaches problems methodically, who does not react to things before he has thought about them, and who, when he has thought about them, says exactly what he means. He is not a dramatic person. He is not given to suspicion or jealousy or the kind of insecurity that makes marriages difficult before they have a reason to be difficult. This matters to the story because the fact that Thomas came to me that Tuesday night with printed screenshots and said he did not know who I was anymore, the fact that my husband, the most measured and rational person I have ever known, had been shaken to that degree, told me everything about how well my sister had done her work. My sister's name is Camille. She is 3 years older than me. She is beautiful in the specific way that makes people look twice, and charming in the specific way that makes them stay, and brilliant in the specific way that makes them trust her completely before they have had time to think about whether that trust has been earned. I loved Camille without question. For the first 28 years of my life, not naively, I understood that she was complicated, that she had a competitive streak she managed with enough social grace that most people never saw it, that she had a way of positioning herself at the center of things that was so natural it did not read as intentional. I understood these things, and I loved her anyway, because she was also funny and fierce and the person I called first when anything went wrong, and the person who showed up first when I needed someone to show up. I thought I knew her. I did not know her. Thomas and I got married 9 years ago. The wedding was everything we wanted. Small, genuine, the kind of celebration that feels like the people in the room rather than the room itself. Camille was my maid of honor. She gave a speech that made everyone laugh and then made half the room cry. She danced until the venue asked us to leave. She was my best friend at that wedding. I think about that sometimes. About the woman who gave that speech and the woman who spent 2 years building the things she built. Whether they are the same person or different ones. Whether what happened was always inside her or whether it grew into something she had not planned for. I do not have an answer. What I know is what she did. And I know it precisely because I spent 4 months documenting every piece of it. The first message my husband received arrived 14 months before that Tuesday night. He did not tell me about it immediately. He waited 3 days, which I have since understood and forgiven. He was processing something he did not want to be true and was hoping it would resolve itself before he had to address it. The message came to his work email from an address he did not recognize. It contained what appeared to be a text conversation between me and a man named Jason, someone who had been in my social circle years before I met Thomas. The conversation as presented in the screenshot suggested that Jason and I had been in contact and that the nature of that contact was not platonic. Thomas showed it to me 3 days after he received it. He showed it to me carefully, not accusingly. Not with the performance of a wounded spouse, but with the specific measured precision of someone who needs to know the truth and is going to ask for it directly. He said, "I need you to look at this and tell me what I am looking at." I looked at it. I felt the specific cold clarity of someone seeing something impossible. "Thomas," I said slowly, "this is not real." "I need you to explain what you mean by that," he said. "I mean, these messages do not exist. I have not spoken to Jason in 4 years. This conversation never happened." He looked at the screenshot. He looked at me. "The number," he said. "In the screenshot. That is your number." "I know," I said. "But I did not send these messages. I do not know where this came from." We sat with that for a long time. Then we did what rational people do. We went through my actual phone. Every message. Every contact. Every record of every conversation for the past 6 months. Jason's name was not there. The conversation was not there. The messages had never existed in my phone because I had never sent them. Thomas believed me, but believing me and understanding what had happened were 2 different things. And for 14 months. After that first message, he carried a specific weight that I could feel even when he was not speaking, the weight of someone who has been shown something he cannot explain and cannot entirely release. Then the second message arrived, and the third, and by the time the fourth arrived, I had begun to understand that this was not random, that whoever was doing this knew us, knew our history, knew the specific conversations that would be most damaging, and the specific timing that would maximize their impact. I did not go to the police immediately. I want to be honest about that. I went to the police eventually. I will tell you when. But for the first several months, I was doing something else. I was building a case, not because I knew who it was yet, but because I had understood from the precision of what was being done that whoever was doing it was careful and patient, and that careless confrontation would accomplish nothing. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I did anything. I hired a digital forensics consultant, a woman named Patricia who had spent 15 years doing exactly this kind of work, tracing manufactured communications back to their source. She was not cheap. I did not tell Thomas how much she cost because the amount would have alarmed him, and I was not ready to have that conversation until I had something to show him. Patricia took 3 months. At the end of 3 months, she came to me with documentation. The messages had been created using a combination of screenshot editing software and a phone number spoofing service. The spoofing service had been accessed through an account created with a temporary email address. The temporary email address had been created on a specific IP address. IP address belonged to a residential internet account in Atlanta. Camille. Lived in Atlanta. I want to tell you how I felt when Patricia showed me the IP address report. I felt nothing for approximately 2 minutes. Just a very specific blankness, the kind that comes when your brain is processing something too large to feel immediately. Then, I felt something I had not expected. Not anger. Not betrayal. Not the hot, immediate devastation that people describe when they discover something like this. I felt sad. Profoundly. Quietly, completely sad. Because somewhere underneath the case I had been building for 3 months, and the precision of what I had been doing and the rational clarity I had been using to hold myself together, underneath all of that was the woman who had called Camille first when anything went wrong. The woman who had believed without question for 28 years that her sister was also her friend. That woman was sad in a way I'm not sure I have the words for. I drove home. I made dinner. I put the children to bed. I sat at the kitchen table with Thomas and I told him everything. Thomas listened without interrupting. For a long time. When I finished, he was very still. Then he said, "Show me the documentation." I showed him everything. Every piece of what Patricia had compiled. The IP address. The spoofing service records. The account creation timestamp. The digital trail that led, step by precise step, back to a residential internet account in Atlanta. Thomas looked at all of it for a long time. Then he looked at me. 4 months, he said. You built this for 4 months. I needed to be certain, I said. Nadia, he said. I know. I said, you went through this for 4 months and you carried it alone, so I would not worry. I did not want to tell you until I had something real to show you. I said. He reached across the table and took both of my hands. He held them for a long time without speaking. Then he said, I am so sorry. For the months I carried that doubt. For every moment it sat between us. I am so sorry. You had reason to doubt, I said. The messages were designed to give you reason. I should have trusted you completely, he said. You trusted me enough, I said. You stayed. You asked directly. You believed me when I said it was not real. That was enough. He squeezed my hands. We sat at that kitchen table for a very long time. The family reunion was 4 months after the documentation. Annual event. My mother's side. 73 people at a rented hall in Georgia. The kind of gathering where the sheer size of the crowd creates a specific kind of noise that takes up all the space in the room. I had not told my parents what Camille had done. I had not told anyone in the family. I had discussed with Thomas and with Patricia and with the lawyer I consulted whether and how to address it, and I had made a decision. I was going to address it once, directly, with Camille, and I was going to do it at the reunion. Not because I wanted an audience, I did not, but because Camille had spent 2 years operating in private, and I had decided that what happened between us was going to happen in a room where she could not control the exit. Thomas was with me. He stood beside me the entire evening. Not as a witness, he was there as my husband, the way a person stands beside the person they love when the person they love is about to do something hard. Camille arrived 40 minutes into the reunion. She was wearing something beautiful. She moved through the room the way she always moved through rooms, warmly, effortlessly, making everyone feel seen. She saw me from across the room. She smiled. The specific wide, genuine-looking smile that I had spent 36 years believing was real. I let her come to me. She crossed the room. She hugged me. She hugged Thomas. She said something warm about the children. Then she stepped back and looked at me, and I looked at her and I said, Camille, I need to speak with you. Privately, outside. Something moved across her face. Very quickly. Gone before anyone else would have caught it. She said, of course. We stood on the side terrace of the reunion hall. The noise of 73 people filtered through the glass doors behind us. The October air was cool. Camille stood with her arms slightly crossed in the specific posture of someone who has decided to be calm before they know what they need to be calm about. I did not extend the tension. I am not someone who dramatizes, I said. I know what you did. She looked at me. I know about the messages. I know about the spoofing service. I know about the account you created with the temporary email. I know about the IP address. Her face went through several things in approximately 4 seconds. I have documentation, I said. All of it. Compiled by a digital forensics consultant over 3 months. It is complete and it is precise and it has been reviewed by a lawyer. She did not speak. I am not going to the police, I said. That is a decision I have made and it is not going to change. What I'm going to do is tell you directly what I know and ask you one question. She was very still. Why? I said, a long silence. Nadia, I'm not asking for an explanation of how, I said. I know how. I am asking why. What was the outcome you were working toward? What did you want to happen? She looked at me for a very long time, then she said, in a voice I had not heard from her before, smaller than her usual voice, stripped of the warmth and the charm and the effortless ease, she said, I wanted him to leave. I held that. Why? I said again. Another long silence. Longer than the first. Because, she said slowly, when you married Thomas you stopped needing me the way you used to. And I did not know what to do with that. I looked at my sister. I looked at the woman who had given a speech at my wedding that made everyone laugh and then made half the room cry. Who had danced until the venue asked us to leave. Who had been the first person I called when anything went wrong for 28 years. I felt the sadness again. The same profound, quiet, complete sadness from the day Patricia showed me the IP address report. Camille, I said. You were never going to lose me to Thomas. That is not how love works. There was never a finite amount of it that he was taking from you. She looked at the ground. But you tried to take him from me, I said. And I need you to understand that if you had succeeded, if Thomas had left, you would not have gotten your sister back. You would have lost her completely. She was crying by then. Not dramatically. The private, stripped-bare crying of someone who has had something they already knew made unavoidable. I did not go to her. I stood where I was. I am not ending this, I said. You are my sister, and I am not capable of ending it. But I am not the same person I was before I knew this, and I cannot pretend to be. Whatever we are going to be from here is going to be built on what is actually true between us. Not on the version of closeness we had before where I did not know what you were capable of. She nodded. She could not speak. That is all I came out here to say, I said. I went back inside. Thomas was waiting just inside the door. He looked at my face. He did not ask what had happened. He put his hand on the small of my back and stayed beside me for the rest of the evening. Camille, and I have a different relationship now, not a broken one. A different one. She has been in therapy since December, her own choice. As far as I know, not compelled by anything I said or did. She has called me twice in the months since the reunion. The calls were short and careful. She asked about the children. She asked how I was. She said she was working on things. I said I was glad. I meant it because I know my sister. I know her the way you know someone you have loved without question for 28 years. And underneath everything she did, underneath the 2 years of careful, patient damage, there was a woman who was frightened of losing something. She did not know how to ask to keep. That does not excuse it. Nothing excuses it. Thomas spent 14 months carrying a weight that was placed on him deliberately by someone who knew exactly where to put it. I spent 4 months building a case while managing a marriage and 2 children and the specific grief of discovering that someone you loved was not who you believed they were. None of that is excused by fear, but it is. Understood. And for me, understanding is where the possibility of something new begins. Thomas and I are stronger now than we were before. I hate that I have to say that, because I know what it cost to get here and I would not choose the path if I had been given a choice. But it is true. The specific strength of something that has been tested at its foundations and held. He said to me one evening, 3 weeks after the reunion, something I've thought about many times since. He said, I keep thinking about you. 4 months. Building that case alone. Carrying it so I would not have to. And I keep thinking about what that says about who you are. I said, what does it say? He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, it says you love this marriage more than you need someone else to understand what you went through. It says you are more interested in protecting us than in being seen as the wronged one. I looked at him. I just needed to know before I said anything, I said. I needed to be certain. I know, he said. That is what I mean. He reached across and took my hand out. We sat in the quiet of our house while our children slept. Upstairs in the ordinary beautiful life we had. Built and protected sat around us like something we had decided to keep. We had decided to keep it. That is the whole story. That is the only part that matters. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to protect something you loved before you could even name what you were protecting it from? Have you ever carried something alone because putting it down before you were ready would have damaged the very thing you were trying to save? And have you ever sat across from someone you loved and heard them name the exact shape of what they had done and felt underneath the anger and the grief and the betrayal? Something that was almost close to sorry for them? Drop the word held in the comments if this story reached something real in you, and if you are new here, subscribe. Every single day I share a new story about family, about marriage, about the people who chose to protect what mattered most even when it cost them everything to do it. I will see you in the next one, Kayla's Dark Truth.